I'm also very excited that we're not playing at the same time as Sleep Token because I was very, very worried when I saw the billing for that. But in the right context and the right mix, like volume wise between the two, it ends up creating kind of a cool. I don't know. He always calls it like a fuckboy layer. Like it's like
Were there any takes of that where you just completely whiffed on it? Where like you overcooked it or undercooked it, or is it kind
oh
of
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, we it that was a funny one actually because
Dayseeker have been creating music for 13 years now, and what seemed to start as a more typically heavy metalcore band has progressed into something that is almost ethereal in its beauty, with some of the most heart wrenching melodies and lyrics that seem to pluck at your emotions like they're harp strings. And at the center of this band is this very talented singer and songwriter by the name of Rory Rodriguez, who I am delighted to have some time to chat to today about this band, Dayseeker. So, Rory, welcome. Thank you very much for your time. Now, what I've appreciated particularly about Dayseeker's music is that it seems that the vocals, the lyrics, the storytelling is very much the centerpiece, and the instrumentation around that is there to support that, to support the moods of that. What do you have in terms of your songwriting process that help to maintain that as a sort of first class citizen of music? Are you starting from a point of view of vocal melodies and lyrics, or does it kind of depend on the songs?
yeah, I think every song is a little bit different at times, although I do feel like I feel like at its core though, we are always trying to focus on like the vocal, the hook, the content of the song, and then it almost feels like the band kind of gets added around it because a lot of the stuff that we write, or especially in our new album, because I got a lot more into piano the last couple of years, and so sometimes I would just write something that's kind of more like a stripped, kind of like a more like a pop song, and I bring it to our producer, and I kind of tell him like, hey, can we add in, these like drop tune guitars here? Let's do like kind of a weird electronic kind of postal service beat here, and then it eventually ends up turning into a Dayseeker song. But I feel like you're pretty correct. It's very vocal focused, and um, we try and even do in our recordings kind of like a pop mix where the vocal is like right poking out at the front, and then the band again is there to like support, add dynamics, make it interesting in its own way. But I think we do a nice balance. I try and make sure it's not too focused on like where it's just me all the time because I think everybody in my band is super talented, but I do think at the root of our success, I think is most people grabbing on to like the lyrical content and the storytelling in the song. So we try and give the people what they want.
Yes. Well, to be clear, the instrumentation is gorgeous and an integral part of it. It's not to diminish that. It's more of the importance there. I often find that great songs work as well with a vocal and a guitar as they do with all the layers and the rest. You have to have that essence there.
Yeah.
When it comes to the production side of things, having done what you've been doing for so many years, I was wondering how much of an understanding of the layering, whether, oh, is a synth layer here going to really work, or is it kind of too much? Are you innately in the production process working on that as well, or do you have people advising and helping with the mix side of things?
It's very deeply rooted in like me bringing something to our producer Dan Bronstein, and then we usually we usually go too over the top most of the time and have to pull back, which is a good problem to have. I think it's a worse problem when you're in the middle of recording a song and you're kind of in the thick of it and you're like, oh man, there's actually like layers missing, like something isn't right here. So we usually create kind of like a pad synth that's just kind of a pretty sort of thing, and then we'll usually find something that has a little bit more movement to it, like a piano melody or a synth layer, and you just drown it in reverb, and it kind of adds this like there's like a rhythm to it, but it's kind of a mess at the same time. And we'll usually do like anywhere from two to four different layers to kind of start, and then we start adding in either guitar, drums, keyboard, and I'm kind of most times too like I'll kind of just show our producer what I have vocally on just a piano or a guitar, and then we'll lay down a rough scratch track and kind of start picking it apart if it's like this is perfect, nothing needs to change, or like this is completely wrong, like this part's cool but we have to change all this stuff around it. It's a lot of tearing a song apart, reinventing it, and then it's hard too because sometimes you'll work at a song for 8 hours and you'll kind of and it's still not right and you might your brain is fried. You get like actual like audible fatigue in your ears, and then it's funny that the answer is always in listening to the song like the first thing in the morning the next day, and you'll always be able to tell like like this actually doesn't make sense, or like, what, it's actually great. We were overthinking it. And I think me and our producer Dan like trust each other very innately that we're always trying to just make a good song. And it's always pretty obvious whether a song sucks or if it needs more work or not.
Sure. Well, it seems to be working out pretty well thus far. One of the superpowers of Dayseeker, as I see it, is the chorus writing in particular. I mean, often you'll have these ribbon-like melodies that kind of float, and then there's an anchoring, powerful note at the end of a line that you're able to kind of belt out. How much of that is something that you have, over the years, experimented with and then found a way of writing satisfying vocal hooks in choruses, or are you also figuring out the musical theory bits and pieces to make sure things land in a way that makes sense?
I wish I could say I was rooted in theory and that I knew my shit really well. I don't at all. I definitely I'm really familiar with guitar and piano and key scales and all that stuff. I don't get super nerdy though with vocal melody specifically. I really sometimes it just kind of comes to me and I have a thing and I'm like this is what the melody is. I've already decided. And other times. Sometimes it is a blank slate and it is a bit harder to kind of sit down and think about what do I want to do here that's different than what I've done before. And I've definitely noticed in our older music, it kind of felt like I had to show off like how acrobatic I could be vocally with like with a run or like every chorus I need to be peak range. And it's funny because I feel like our new album, I feel like it's written really well, but I do feel like I I don't know, like we put out Pale Moonlight, and I think some people, there's a few comments I saw from I think old listeners who were like, "Oh, it feels like boring," and I'm like, just because I'm not like hitting this high C the whole time and like screaming at the top of my lungs doesn't mean like it's a boring song. And so I realized that I think I'm just trying to go for somebody listening to it, like note wise in a melody, like what is catchy to a person, not like, yeah, am I just screaming at the top of my lungs like the whole song. But I'm very excited for people to hear it, but it's tough. It's tough being around this long and trying to keep things like interesting and new and original when I think this is like our sixth or seventh album that we've done together. So it's a lot. Yeah.
Yes, I can imagine it will get tougher and tougher to innovate after all those years. But then that's got to be the excitement of it. And I mean, my experience of it was not that it was boring. I mean, I suspect we tend to hyper focus on negative feedback than all the many people who love the song, for example.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a great, wonderful song. And
Thanks, man.
no worries. There's a particular song as well in terms of the vocal delivery choices you make. On Dark Sun, there is a song called Midnight Eternal, and you have this like gentle vocal deliveries in like the first verse and the first chorus, and then the second verse. Halfway through the second verse, you then go with like a more powerful arrangement over the top. How much thought goes into a decision of like, here I want to do this in a different vocal delivery way to the first part? Is that something you talked about with the producer or your band, going like, how can we make this journey work with a lift?
Songwriting is a lot of the time, it does feel like, at least in terms of pop writing, like what we try to do, it is formulaic to a degree. Like you want to have at least in terms of the success that we found within our band, because I think I used to have this mentality when we were writing metal, like you write your intro and your verse and a pre-chorus and a chorus, and then the second verse is something totally different from the first verse, and then you get back to a chorus, and then you do like a 3 minute bridge out and then the song's done. And then you listen back to some of our earlier stuff and I realized like you have to try and think about like how is this song going to grab somebody on a first time listen, because I was falling in love with our older music at the time because I was hearing it hundreds of times over, but then you realize that there's too much going on. It's too complex, at least for a particular person, like a metal fan who wants like obscure confusing music for like 5 minute songs. Like they love that kind of stuff. But the general public, I think, likes something that's a little more, I don't want to say spoon fed because I think that has a negative sound to it, but I feel like we started just approaching writing of like, we're gonna write a verse that has a catchy melody in it and it's easy to digest, and we're gonna go back to the same verse on the second one, melodically speaking. And then my thinking is always that you can ultimately like utilize the same verse on the second time, but you should change something about it a little bit so that I think it scratches an itch in a person's brain, so it's not too formulaic. So we always kind of are like, yeah, if I'm down an octave and it's chill in the first verse, maybe I go up the octave, or if that's not possible, I just add in a few note changes or like a vocal run with like some more soulful flair to it. So um I don't know, that was a tough song to put together. Like we kind of came up with the melody first and wrote it all, and then there was something about when like the digital percussion came in on the second half. It was just kind of like I think it like wants to go somewhere vocally. Like I think it would have been boring if I kept doing the bounce between like falsetto to like normal voice the whole time. And so we just, yeah, no, we tried it, and I remember I did like a rough take for him, and he was like, "Ooh, yeah." He's like, "That's like what you have to do. That it feels like it kind of rises nicely." So there's a formula to it for sure, but we're very very picky about the vocals and like the vocal, like the actual recording of the vocals. He definitely makes me sing a lot when we do songs together. But the ends always justify the means. It's kind of like vocal boot camp, but I feel like we always end up getting the best take when the song is done.
Well, that's great because the song is going to live forever. So you want to be patient and give
Yeah,
it the best shot you can.
sure.
Um, yeah, I was thinking about the Pale Moonlight song there, and one thing I've noticed that you clearly have, and I've heard some live vocal performances from yourself. You have a great singing voice. I've noticed that in like the verses of Pale Moonlight, there's more of a kind of vocal effects being added on there for aesthetic sort of sound of that, I would presume. What kind of vocal effects are you playing with? I'm presuming it's not just tuning. There's something else kind of going on that gives it a sort of forceful strength despite the kind of lower energy delivery, right? What kind of effects are you playing with for those things?
Yeah, it's man, I forget exactly what it's called. It might be called Altar Boy or something, but yeah, Dan Bronstein, he has this effect he'll throw in that uh sometimes it calls for it where like if you do a layer, I'm doing the falsetto layer in the first verse of Pale Moonlight. It's like sometimes it makes sense to do, you could do an octave under it and it's more of a low sung voice the
Mm.
whole time through. But sometimes, I think we did it even on Dark Sun I think it was in Without Me or something in the chorus. But yeah, it's this effect that basically takes the exact main vocal take you have. It creates a duplicate layer and then it just shoots it down 12 notes. And so it's a lower octave layer. And so you still kind of get that like auditory sense of like, oh, there's a nice like warm low layer under it, but it sounds kind of like mwah, and like robotic because it's 12 notes shot down. And so in the right context and the right mix, like volume wise between the two, it ends up creating kind of a cool, I don't know. He always calls it like a fuckboy layer. Like it's like something, I don't know, like something you'd hear in oh, I'm trying to think of like the right artist without it being
I mean, I
like
don't know if it's the
sounding like
right
I'm
artist, but
insulting him.
I've definitely heard that same effect used on Sleep Token records in the earlier years as well. It's like it sort of sounds like a low harmony, but it's so exactly replicated. I'm like, that's not a multi-track vocal. That's something
No,
else.
yeah.
It's just adding a bit of depth to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. They do it in that like go ahead and put your arms around me thing. Like it was a similar thing there. Like it's I almost
very
wonder
cool.
if he recorded it up falsetto and then they just shot it down
And
12
took off the
notes. I mean
falsetto.
it
Yeah.
has the robotic kind of sound to it. So it's cool to play around with for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. I noticed in the live performance that you're not the only person who can sing really well in the band. Your guitarists as well have great voices. Now, I obviously that's a benefit for vocal harmonies live or any overlapping vocals. But do you ever use that to help you with pacing? Because there's so much on you vocally live, so they might take a connective line here and there so you can break before going into a chorus. Does that ever happen in your live sets?
Oh, 100%. I don't know what I would do without either of them. Probably more so. Ramon's our bassist. He helps me more on like the dirtier, harsher vocals. Gino is our guitar player, and he's a very talented singer. And he's yeah, so he obviously picks up all the harmonies underneath it, which is cool. But yeah, a lot of times because sometimes in the studio you write vocals and melodies that serve the song and it makes a good song, but then you go into a rehearsal with your band for the first time and you try and sing through it and you're like, "Oh shit, I really did not think out the pacing at all." And I'm like fighting for my life, like a minute or a minute and a half into the song. So Gino, a lot of times, yeah, I'll have him take a main like for just like a line before a chorus so I can just breathe. Even just having like a 5 second window to breathe for a second live, it makes a really, really big difference. And I can already tell that I did that to myself and I shot myself in the foot on some of our newer songs on the new album where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna need help. So like I said, I'm really lucky because I know it's funny, there's some bands out there who like their only singer in the band is the guy singing, and I don't know. I guess like we could still do it. You would just have to do like the out to the crowd thing like way more often. But no, I'm really lucky to have Gino. He saves my life a lot of the time live for sure.
Well, that's a massive benefit. Yeah, because I suppose you're writing for the song first. You're like, we'll figure it out live later, and you go, I've not left a gap to breathe in. Well, how am I gonna like?
Yeah, it's rough sometimes, but I'm lucky for sure. It's good to have somebody who's such a good singer supporting me when we play live.
Nice. Now, one of the songs that really stood out to me on the Dark Sun record was Paper Heart. I wasn't quite ready for like how emotional that song and how just beautiful all the supporting instrumentation would be. I was wondering when, because I know that album's like very close to your heart and it's a very kind of melancholic and deep record. When it comes to, you mentioned when you're a producer, like you're going to try and do lots of takes to get the most out of it. How do you again and again, or do you try and kind of one take things that are particularly emotional and difficult subject matter, but do you think about the technical execution, or are you trying to deliver something about how you felt about that particular lyric at the time? How do you balance the heart with the technicality in the studio?
It's hard sometimes because well, Paper Heart specifically is that was a more challenging song to record, like technically speaking, because it's really funny that whenever we have to do like full on projected belted vocals, it goes typically very fast in the studio because that stuff is pretty not easy in effort, but it's like it's one dimensional usually in tone. There's only so many different ways you can sing a certain melody versus it feels like when you have a lower melody in Paper Heart, and you're trying to like pay attention to the content and what you're saying, it's like important to have a like that you're emoting properly. So I think when we did Paper Heart, like I wrote most of Paper Heart I was very depressed for a second in my room and I had an electric guitar and I was kind of playing through the chords and we moved it to piano when we did the album. But I was just kind of singing like I had a rough demo in my phone, just like a iPhone note record or whatever, and I was singing very like half pushed under my breath kind of a thing. And so when we went to do it, I was like, I think we should kind of do it like that. So we turned the gain up like really hot on the mic. And then, I was like half singing on the first verse basically. And that stuff, it sometimes is hard because it's so nuanced to get like the right takes. And there's kind of a fine line. It's kind of like the Billie Eilish thing, like she does. Like you are singing, but it's so quiet and so frail. It's like you have to be careful that your voice doesn't get too shaky or the note isn't too flat. But if you nail the takes just right, it like creates kind of just like a cool sort of experience. We kind of have like another song like that on our new record. It's funny. I always feel like I'm like, that's the Paper Heart on our new record. It's this song called The Living Dead. Um, and just kind of a similar vibe. It's kind of an easy to digest like pop, but still like very sad, melancholy kind of song. And it was the same thing. I felt like we had to really take our time with the takes on that song. Those songs you always have to, the ones that are really personal and intimate versus a song like Sleep Talk is really easy to do because I'm just, belting for most of it.
That's fabulous. It's kind of mind blowing for anyone that's not familiar with doing that because you'd assume like these big buildings must be really hard to nail. But I can see what you're saying. If something is kind of low, it's like if you're flying a kite in a very small wind and then suddenly there's a big gust, it's fucking gone. Like
Yeah,
you'd
yeah.
be so close to having an intonation that completely changes the delivery that you want. For example, like, I suppose
No, dead
that's
on.
interesting.
Yeah, it's something I still try and figure out, and I've met singers where it's the flip opposite for them. Like their lower, more frail, chill vocals are super easy for them to track, and then as soon as they get into like projected belted notes, they struggle a lot, and I'm totally the flip opposite. I think
Nice.
that's just I don't know, I think I grew up listening to singers like Aaron Gillespie from Under Oath and Dustin Kensrue from Thrice, and I was like, man, these guys are just like balls to the wall when they're projecting, and I think I figured that out first before a lot of things vocally, and then I'm like still trying to figure stuff out in my 30s about how to be a good singer in other aspects, but it's a learning process, still figuring it out.
That's great. Well, that keeps it interesting for yourself as well. There's more ways to kind of experiment. One of the songs that you featured on, which is one of my favorite artists in the world, by Bill Murray, you did the "Fuck I'm Lonely" song, and that has a big jump in it. Like to hit the high note to start with the "fuck" before the "I'm lonely." But I was just wondering, like when you're in the studio, were there any takes of that where you just completely whiffed on it? Where like you overcooked it or undercooked it, or is it
Oh
kind of
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, that was a funny one actually because I I was a Bill Murray fan for a long time, and I was dating a girl at the time, and she was also a fan, and she mentioned that he did a live on Instagram, and I guess he was asking like who should I feature on a thing, and somebody threw my name in there, and he's like, oh, I love that band. I didn't know he knew about us because I think this was still like 2019, or it was a long time ago. We weren't doing so well like with people knowing about our band, so I kind of just like slid in his DMs, and I was like, "Hey, if you ever want to collab or do something together, just like I'm super down. Just reach out." And it's funny, he was about to finish wrapping up that EP, and I don't know if he was going to put the cover on it because I don't think he had anybody to do it with because he had like a guest singer on every track for that cover EP, and he was like, "Yeah, I put together this like love cover." And he's like, I have to turn it in very soon though. So he's like, can you track vocals for that within a day or two and just send it back to me? And I was like, sure. I kind of knew the song, but not really. And I learned it, and I recorded it with my buddy that I lived with at the time. Um, we had like a very amateur kind of recording setup, but it was a good microphone. So yeah, just tracked it. But yeah, I for sure it's easy to biff like a falsetto note like that. And like the word fuck, it has to be, you can't be like too hard on the CK at the end. I don't know. That was a funny one to record, but it came together really quick. And that's kind of like how our friendship started and how our collaboration started. But it's also funny because we just did like an arena show with Beartooth earlier this year, and that was the first time I met Johnny from Bill Murray, like face to face in person. And then we both just played Rockville this past weekend, and we did this song together called "Fluoride in the Hard Seltzer Water," and that was also the first time we had ever like played that song together live. And he was telling me that that song's 5 years old now, and I couldn't believe that we did it that long ago, and it took us that long to like meet up together and do it live. But he's the best. I really like Johnny. He's a sweet guy.
Yeah, he's a lovely dude. I saw some clips on Instagram of that moment with you and them on stage. I just like a wonderful thing to see. I was wondering about your take because you were with him on that song so long ago. What is your take on the kind of rocket ride that Bill Murray is currently on and finally getting, I think, the recognition that's been deserved for a long time? Clearly, I only discovered him like a year or so ago, but
Yeah.
clearly he's been doing A level high quality music for a very long time at this stage.
It's interesting kind of coming up with your friends at the same time, and yeah, they're doing great. I say it with respect, but I do feel like his band is somewhat of an anomaly because I think I think the songwriting is brilliant. I loved their last record they did that was more country leaning. And I've liked a lot of the stuff he's put out, but it is funny that there is this level of like satire in like the visuals and the production of, not even in the production, just in the aesthetics of him and the music, but then like the actual songs that were very serious, and you can tell he takes it really seriously. But I think that's his appeal though, that people like too, is that he's not taking himself too seriously. He's not like a Sleep Token where it's like nobody knows who I am and my identity. And he's yeah, he's a really nice dude, and I'm happy to see him get his flowers because he deserves it. And yeah, they're doing great. They're selling rooms. I think really like pretty much the same size we're doing, and it feels like that happened kind of out of nowhere. So I'm really happy for them. We always talk about trying to put a tour together, but it's hard getting like the stars to align with that stuff sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, because I hadn't seen it before the clip of you performing live with them, but like the backdrop they currently have with like a swole Jar Jar Binks, it's like, how is this working as a concept at all? But then the lyrics are just so devastating. It's quite a combination. Um,
Yeah, I
on that, actually, no, go on.
Oh no, I was just saying I took a picture of his backdrop because yeah, it was like a beefed up Jar Jar Binks, and then Johnny was in the center of it, but his like neck was pushed up like this, and some other ripped guy to his right. Yeah, it's I know what you mean. It's really funny. It's like, but that's what people love about him is that there's like an element of comedy kind of in his show, which is cool.
Yeah, it's very nice. Now, in terms of as well, when it comes to the nuance of meaningful lyrics and delivery and other styles of bands and things, you've got a tour coming up pretty soon with Ice Nine Kills and Kim Dracula and Nest and the Funeral Portrait. Are you the main support for Ice Nine Kills on that tour? I kind of look that way. So
Yeah,
that's quite
yeah.
a gear shift, I think, in terms of bands. Like you've got these beautiful, whatever, catchy chorus, and then you're going to have this horror show of like insane metal musicianship and the rest. Are you planning set list wise any differently to help navigate the crowd into Ice Nine Kills?
No, no, not really. I think to be fair, Ice Nine is like its own machine. I have a lot of respect for their how much they commit into the level of their production for their live show. They're not just a band that shows up and plays their songs live. There's a lot that goes into it, which is really cool. I will say I do feel like our newer record is more like eerie, kind of horror leaning. It's hard to describe, but there is just an overtone of it that I think is a lot more friendly to somebody who would listen to a band like Ice Nine Kills. And I think the hopeful goal is that we'll have like I know we're planning to announce our album in July, and that'll be with a new song. And then I think a week or two into that tour, I think we'll have another song out. So I think the hopeful goal will be by that point is we'll have like two or three new songs into our set mixed with our old music. And we're hoping between that we can still grab their fans. I mean, I think we do a good live show, and we have a really great front of house. Her name's Sarah. And we got really lucky finding her. I feel like she half of it is putting on a good live show is great, but you have to have somebody mixing you to make you sound good when you're in any particular venue or festival setting. So um but I think we used to do that, I think sometimes where it's like we tour with a metal band and we'd be like, okay, we got to add more heavy ones in and more alt rock, and we'd try and change it. And I think at some point we were like, we're just gonna like these songs seem to go over well generally, and it doesn't matter what genre they are. So let's just pick the best songs we think we have in our catalog, the ones that have streamed the most, that most people probably want to hear, and just try and put on a good show. But I do agree. I We confirmed as direct support for Ice Nine, and I love those guys. But it's funny when you do a tour, like you don't always know who else is going to be on the bill. And when I found out Kim Dracula was on the bill, I was just like, Oh, interesting. Just kind of like it's no disrespect to Kim Dracula. I think they are cool in their own way, but it's just you kind of start feeling like, oh, we are gonna stick out a little bit on that tour package. Like I do think Kim Dracula makes a lot of sense with Ice Nine Kills. I think we are. It's going to be funny juxtapositions, going back and forth between the bands. But I'm excited. They're bigger rooms. We've known the Ice Nine guys for a while, and they're good people. So I'm sure it'll be a great tour.
And what I can see in the modern music scene is that people are far more interested in enjoying a variety of genres and bands and styles than they ever were. So I think it's far more interesting for an
Yeah,
audience member to see a variety and not just be like, oh, here's five metalcore bands in a row. It's like, well, how much can you really enjoy and differentiate between them? How is the middle band going to stand out necessarily? So I think it's a genius play, perhaps, to have such a range on that tour.
I agree. I think there was this like metal elitist phase when I was younger where man, I listened to like Circa Survive and Seosin in high school, and I had friends who were listening to, like As I Lay Dying and just full on metal bands who would like make fun of me for listening to a band that dared to have not screaming vocals in it. And then, of course, they all got older and started listening to the exact same stuff. But I know what you mean. I feel like currently. Um, I think it's because all that stuff gets kind of burned into the ground and people get tired of hearing the same thing over and over. So I fully agree that I think people right now are way more receptive to new styles of music and kind of like genre blending, like just putting stuff together and just seeing what fits. I think we're seeing that with like Sleep Token, Bad Omens, us, like we're kind of blending weird stuff together and people are like very receptive to it. So I think it'll go over okay. I'm not super worried about that tour. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have no doubt. You're so right. I'm just thinking back to my high school days. The lines we would draw between very similar bands, they'd be like, no, 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 that band's completely different. It's like,
Yeah.
actually, we're all kind of in the same interest here. And
Yeah.
then also in this summer, pretty soon, actually, in a few weeks, you'll be playing Download Festival. Have you played Download Festival before? Is this your first time at that particular event?
First time. We've wanted to for a long time. Just the stars never really aligned in our touring schedule, and we have kind of built up our own fan base in the United Kingdom, and we felt like this was a good time to do it. We'll have like we'll have let me see. Will we have? No, we won't have the album out, or we won't have a new album out by then. But it just felt good off the success of Pale Moonlight. Just kind of trying to see how we do there. But I've heard great things about Download. I'm super excited to check it out.
Yes, it's a festival that I make a yearly pilgrimage. It's a very receptive and friendly, wonderful place. And you're headlining the Avalanche stage, which is no joke in itself as well. Your first appearance to be headlining. Are you planning anything set list wise that is any way different, considering it's a festival? There might be some curiosity, people in the crowd are not necessarily just folks coming to see your own gig, or is it we have a Dayseeker show, we're going to be delivering that. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, aside from we open our shows with Pale Moonlight now, I think that's like the only real new thing we're doing into our sets. And then otherwise, just like the stuff that we feel like connects with our audience best and seem to go over the best. But we're excited. I'm also very excited that we're not playing at the same time as Sleep Token because I was very worried when I saw the billing for that. But thankfully, we actually know the guy who puts on Download Fest. He's this guy Cam. He's a very sweet guy, and I don't know if he had anything to do with the scheduling, but somebody was looking out for us because I think we headline at like 8, and then I think Sleep Token plays at 9:30 or 9:40. So, and we only play for an hour, so like there's plenty of time to go see us. Go make your way over to Sleep Token. So we're super excited. It's we just headlined Rockville for the first time, and that was a great experience because you realize a festival to me kind of feels like Spotify in like real time. It's like you pay this blanket fee and then there's like 40 bands playing and you're like so we had a lot of people watching us and I'm sure all of them weren't like diehard fans, but you have people who might be like, I'm just gonna go check them out because nobody else I know is playing, or like I kind of like them and I just want to see the show. And it's cool to feel like you expose your band to so many new people, new listeners, and I'm hoping for the same thing at Download because, like I said, we're not playing at the same time that anybody like in our direct genre where it's like holy shit, please don't play at the same time as us because yeah, we had that happen at we played Sick New World in Vegas last year at like the exact same time as Bad Omens, and thankfully we still had like a fantastic like I looked at both crowd sizes and I was like it's wasn't crazy different like I think, but I think some people had to pick between us, and whoever made that schedule I was like dude, you you didn't understand, yeah, like how many. It just feels like we have a lot of mutual fans. It's like, damn, like any other two
Yeah.
bands you could put to play together at the same time. But yeah, very very excited for Download though.
Yeah, that is the heartbreaker as an audience member of a festival. It's like there are always clashes. And when I saw you headlining that stage and Sleep Talking, I'm like, oh, there's no how are we gonna possibly do that? But yeah, there is at least 15 to 20 minutes gap. So it might be kind of funny to see like once you take your final bow, the crowd's just gonna start running
Oh yeah,
over. But at least
yeah,
those stages are pretty close to each other. It'll be everyone can see the whole set of Dayseeker and not worry, and then go check out Sleep Token.
sick.
That'd be great. Um, I was wondering, at this stage, you've been in a band for 13 years now. There must be many moments where you've gone, "Oh, we're at a new level now. Oh, this I can't believe we got to this stage at this point." Is there anything that stands out that you still look back on and go, "I know that it made sense, our band progressed, but I kind of still can't believe that actually happened to us at that moment."
I think Rockville actually, just this past weekend was kind of a moment like that for sure because we had a video wall. We invested in like pyro, so we knew we were gonna put on like a good show, but there. I think when you're a band that's at our level, like we're not quite, like a Bad Omens or a Sleep Token, like a Pierce the Veil, where it's like, for 100% of fact when that band headlines that stage, like they're gonna play to just tons and tons of people. And so when we got the offer to headline Rockville, I think it was last year, I was kind of like, really? I don't know. Like, I don't know if we should headline. Like, I'm down to play. I was just like, I don't know if we're like a headlining band for a festival of that size yet. And it was there was probably like 10,000 people. It was like just as far back as I could see. Especially this bit in this song Burial Plot, we have people put their phones up and they did that, and it was a very like yeah, it's just a very surreal experience of like, I can't believe there's this many people who are choosing to stand here and choosing to give us their time and their energy. And so, and we had a bunch of like industry friends who were just kind of blown away. And they were like, I feel like I'm watching your band kind of break in real time, like get more and more successful. And so, it's exciting, yeah, because I think we were always excited to be even to play to like a few hundred people when we would headline in like a small club would be cool. And then we've gotten lucky to move up to, 2,000 or 3,000 when we headline in the States at club venues, and it's great. But yeah, you always kind of worry like when is our peak and when is this gonna, stop being so cool? And it thankfully it just seems to keep going up. But I'd say this past weekend was definitely a big just like a big holy shit moment. And even man, even when we played the Royal Albert Hall, I think it was, yeah, in Manchester, and it was like it might have been Royal Albert, it might have just been Albert Hall, but it was whatever the smaller one is, but it's still like a 2,000 cap. But we played there and filmed our set, and it was just like I can't believe we're not in the United States and like this many people are coming to see us across the seas. So there's been a lot of moments, I'd say. But honestly, Rockville this last weekend was like a what the fuck? Like the whole time we were playing. It was crazy.
That's great. And what a time to do that as well when you're releasing new music and you got a new album coming up and
Yeah.
seeing the music video you had for Pale Moonlight was unreal. Like it's you're leaning into more like a sci-fi thing. It's super high quality. It's like it does feel like Dayseeker's in a new epoch. And it'll be exciting to see how the album kind of translates for that and what else is. Like you're saying the kind of spooky sort of vibes. Like that's super fascinating. Can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, really excited. We definitely spent a lot of money on that music video, so I'm
It
glad you
looks it.
like
It
it.
looks amazing.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And then for the rest of your music videos, you can just do what Johnny Frank does and just grab a monster can and film whatever. It'd be fine.
Yeah, just sit on a lawnmower and just have a guy film it on a camcorder and just call it a day. Yeah.
Exactly. I was wondering, in terms of the future of the band, obviously we were hinting at some kind of sci-fi leaning things and bits and pieces, but is there any kind of musical frontier that you've thought about that you're at some point hoping to kind of do? I know you've got a single coming out with a country artist soon. Are you a feature on them? How did that come about? And is that something you've been interested in doing for a while?
I've always kind of been curious, and I wouldn't say I'm like a country music fan. There's like a couple of artists that I think are cool and talented, but I do feel like the last couple of years I had kind of gotten into some country artists and just appreciated the pop writing sensibility in a country song is so good sometimes because they really hone in on like one-liners, the lyrics, like kind of a swing to the melody, and I feel like I kind of applied that into some of our newer album. But no, John Langston, the guy I did the country feature for, he did a feature for Issues years and years ago on their album Beautiful Oblivion, and I thought he had a great voice. And then it's kind of I don't know, it's funny how a lot of metal musicians will exit this scene and kind of go into the country world. But I knew this guy Pablo who drummed in Chelsea Grin, and he ended up uh, one way or another ended up becoming the drummer for John Langston when he plays his live shows. And so we did a show in Las Vegas. It might have been with like Silverstein a couple of years ago, and he yeah, he came out, he introduced me to John. We kind of hit it off, and then John had approached me probably like 6 or 7 months ago. I was like, "Hey, I wrote this country song, and do you have any interest in singing on it?" And I listened to it, and I was like, "Yeah, I think it's a very well put together pop song, and I could right off the bat I could hear exactly what I would want to do vocally and harmony wise." And yeah, it's cool to step into that genre because I've never done that before. But hopefully people are receptive because I'm not like a super big country. I don't sound like a country singer, but I think it came out awesome. I'm excited for people to hear that one.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that as well. I think I heard a little snippet on TikTok or something. That sounds very interesting. And then a lot of people will be looking to you as someone to put on a pedestal as an incredible vocalist. I was wondering who you look to in the kind of rock and metal scene that you think you could listen to them sing the alphabet. You'd be perfectly happy. They're kind of a high level. Is there anyone you're looking up to within the rock universe?
Um, Dallas Green from Alexis on Fire is a huge one, and I think he's somebody who's like a generational talent. I think he's phenomenal. I know I mentioned, yeah, Dustin Kensrue from Thrice. I grew up just absolutely loving that guy. Still love that band. I'd even say like in our current scene and circuit, I would say Lucas Woodland from Holding Absence is like he's another one as a generational talent. I just don't like we did an acoustic song together on this album Replica, and he did like the feature first, and then we did a small string of dates with Pierce the Veil, and so we were touring together. I was like, we should do that song together. Like, I think it would be a cool moment in the set, but it's tough because we're in different countries. So the first time we played it together was at the sound check for the first show, and yeah, I was just listening to him in my in ears, and I was just like I think I hold up okay live, and that guy I think is another level past me. Or I'm just like, how do you sound like? I've heard raw tracks of him out of soundboards, and he just sounds phenomenal. So Lucas is another one I think is I think it's the same thing. I think in a few years, Holding Absence will be a massive band, but those are three I think that stick out for me at the moment.
Those are great shouts, great shouts, and
Yeah,
I think there's something special as well about live performances where like you can increasingly because of the production techniques we have access to, people can sound great on record, but the ones that stand out you only notice live. Like when I saw Alexis on Fire for the first time, and you first hear Dallas Green singing live, you can't. The whole room goes, "What?"
yeah,
It's unbelievable. The force and the power from that. It's pretty
yeah.
exceptional.
He's one of the only artists I've seen live when he was doing City in Color, where I actually felt like almost moved to tears when he was playing because it was just beautiful. And he sings in a weird way where he's like in between his chest voice and his head voice, but it's really loud still. I don't know. He's like I've tried to figure out what he's doing for like 2 decades, and I still don't know. But he's an incredible singer. Definitely influenced me a lot over the years.
Well, that's a wonderful bit of insight. Thank you for that. Well, listen, I've absolutely adored having this conversation. Thank you very much again for your time, Rory. I'm looking forward to so much hearing the new songs as they come out over the next kind of weeks and months with the album as well, and checking out your set at Download Festival. I'm sure that's going to be a hoot. Thank you, and good luck with everything that you've got going on this year with Dayseeker.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank you for enjoying that interview with Rory from Dayseeker. What an insightful, wonderful conversation that was. I'll put some links in the description of this episode to the various social media platforms so you can keep up to date with Dayseeker and Rory in future. Do make sure you're subscribed as well. If you're enjoying this and you want more of these interviews in your future, you can subscribe for free. And if you really enjoyed it and you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please do consider giving it a 5-star rating so that more people can discover this conversation that we had here. Thank you for tuning in either way, and hopefully I'll see you in another one of these interviews very soon.